I don't think we've quite developed enough that people are willing to fund and sustain the industry yet. Because I don't think they've seen enough returns. That's why I'm saying we need to show them what we can do for the industry as a whole, not just as individuals.
What defines a Kenyan pipeline? And from that, it's easier for you to even go to policymakers and say, okay, this is now how people operate. These are the tools of trade, this is the expenses, these are and this is now what, because right now you go to a government and be like, okay, you want 10 million for what? Like, I don't understand what exactly you're doing.
I think if there's someone out there who wants like support and he doesn't know what to do, is trying to get someone, or rather like people who know what is to be done. I think the best way to get into the 3K, the association, get to know, yeah, and you get to interact with fellow creatives.
Everyone needs to be educated on how everything works, because even us as creatives, we need to know how business works and how marketing and how we can get funding. On this other side, we also need to know how to pay our taxes. We also need to know how to do all these things. So, and at the same time, we also need to perfect our own craft. Yeah. So it is a whole spectrum of things that we need to do. But that's the best thing about it. We are creative, we create, and we're able to find innovative solutions for it.
There's some guy who, Rachel, I think you brought him up here some weeks back, and he had a good idea of how can we consolidate this. Let's say we create a feature film, rather in 3D, 2D animation, and we do like screening where, let's say, Alliance Française, a certain place, whereby we say, for you to come in, kuna ticket, just a token for these guys who have done this. So he had a good concept and idea about that, whereby you guys come and volunteer, you can, create something.
A screening of people's animations, just to showcase what people are actually doing behind the scenes.
Exactly.
That's actually something. Okay, I haven't practiced animation for a while, but I remember when we were in school, that is Shangtao, we were taught how that scene optimization where you only render the things you actually need.
The cameras.
Yeah, because if you're maybe animating this room, there are angles you really don't need. So that makes the file lighter. For you, Jeff, you've practiced animation from, I don't know if I can call it the traditional style, and you've progressed from, you were scanning the artworks.
Yeah.
So you scan the frame by frame, you draw frame by frame, you scan it, and then you go back to your machine and then redraw it again. Then from there, you transition into probably the digital animation, where you still drawing frame by frame, but on your computer. So you've seen that development from traditional to digital to now, where we even have these suits. What are they called? The mock-up suits. So how has your experience been seeing these transformations in the digital field? Because most people, when something comes up, they complain that it's going to take my job, but from a different angle, it's making your work easier. So what's your thought on that?
My thought starts with the end. It starts with the end. And the end is, we always complain about African stories not being told. So that's the end. So the means, the ends justify the means or something. So right now what we are complaining about, especially because I don't really want to look at us as we can't be compared to what's going on outside there. We are in a very young stage as an industry. We are very, the perfect word to use is we are in our nascent stages. We are starting out. We are basically establishing ourselves. So when you start using the same arguments that other people elsewhere using, yet their industries have been there for 100 years, it doesn't really make sense. So in my particular perspective, I'd say my whole MO was to tell this story about a mama mboga who's struggling and shoots avocados to space and I don't know, just does crazy things just to win customers. That's my story. How I get there is because at the end of the day, the audience doesn't really care about the audience and the consumers and the people who are going to buy that product. They don't really care how it was made. They just wanted to know, okay, is it cheap enough for me to buy it? Or is it viable enough for you to keep producing the same product? So I've seen us going from a very cumbersome, as you'd attest to how cumbersome it is to do frame by frame, you know, almost 12 drawings a second, and you're making a 3-minute thing, and all those things have moving parts around it. So how cumbersome it is, and moving into a more advanced stage where I can now at least use a tablet or maybe have softwares like Toonboom that have rigging features that you can rig your 2D models and still tell the same stories as we have in Uli and Tata, whereby we're doing cutouts with Toonboom. So my urge is not really to, let's, especially as in our context of Kenya or Africa, let's not see the new technologies as threats, because we're still very young to consider them threats. They should be opportunities for us to actually make our stories and control this technology that we have and make our stories move forward.
And will you say, for you, these guys, I think you guys mlianza too with the digital animation.
Yeah.
So will you say there's probably a benefit in also understanding traditional animation?
Definitely. I think they should always say the trenches. Yeah, you need to go through the trenches before moving into all these new technologies, because it solidifies your understanding of the principles first. Because when you manually do things and you manually have to painstakingly draw, design, and think about whatever it is that you're doing without any help from a computer, it helps you learn the fundamentals and for them to stick into your mind, so that by the time you're actually applying it on now a new technology or a new software or whatever, your work is actually very good. Hence why we can clearly see there's a very big difference between how Hollywood approaches stuff, because then they have had hundreds of years of experience, like decades of experience, sorry. And all that now culminates into new technologies. So once you merge those two together, you create a very exceptional product. And I think we should also approach the same way. Have a session where you stick to the fundamentals, which is the traditional stuff, and then now apply it to the new technology, and everything just blows up. You know.
But like in 3D, I think in 3D we have like different niches, whereby like there's modeling part, there's animation, then there's the environment creation. Like I think in 3D, the place whereby traditional knowledge can be applied, it's when it comes to animation itself. But now, like, since 3D has a lot of things around it, we have the modeling part, we have the environment creation part, you have the because you're just visualizing someone's work. Yeah, there's someone who has done the drawing, so you're just visualizing it. So 3D starts from the traditional, as of course, the drawing and whatnot. But I think if someone is to like take a niche out of it, it's very easy for them, because they don't necessarily have to like know the traditional, ways of working. I think so.
Actually, the whole argument is not really going through the traditional route. It's more of just fully understanding the principles of design and principles of animation as well. Okay. And that almost always comes about when you manually do the design work, but not necessarily proper animation, but just understanding the principles in a more crude way helps you understand when you move into a more advanced setup. Maybe I think that the Houdini guys have...
No, actually it's true, because animation principles remain the same throughout.
Yeah,
Because for people like you do like, for timing, you call it like ones or twos for the frame rate and how you want your animation to go.
Yeah.
For us, it's keyframing, but it's still the same. So us will use curves to do what you'll do using twos or threes. Yeah, but the principles are still the same. Yeah.
Because even still, if you remember the ball
Bouncing,
sort of like you still apply it in 3D. Sort of like.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you guys practice animation full time? Is it what you do? How about you?
I do up developing, but right now, like this year, I have fully focused on 3D. This year.
Okay. How about you?
Me, not quite, because right now I would say I'm evolving. So, because I got into this industry to actually try and move our industry forward. We're still lacking, as you've said. So, right now I'd say I'm more into compositing than animating, because compositing is actually quite wide and complex that I don't think as an industry we've quite captured it yet locally. So usually I'm an animator full time, but I also play football. And like I've said, I'm trying an instrument, but apart from that, I'd say animation is my main game. But I'm trying to also get into, because technical effects are quite complex. There is also coding involved. Hata hizi vitu mnaona kwa movies, they usually create custom
Rigs,
not even rigs, custom softwares, in-house softwares, just to make a portion of a movie. Nacheki. So that is where I'm trying to get into compositing, because there's some details, but I'm full-time animation.
Actually, that would be a very, very, very good way to make this industry sustainable. Because if we have these sort of new ideas that make things, especially once you own that IP, let's say if it's an IP that you already have, and you own that, and it has a special way of creating this product, and it's unique to you, I'm pretty sure you'll get, look at ILM. ILM is a very good example. Or Disney with their render farms, and they have their own, So I think once you move into that field, I'm pretty sure the industry will move forward.
Because I don't think people have really done that. We mostly depend on the actual software and what it has to offer. But I think with Blender, since it's open source, you can do so much of it also.
And so I was even asking you if you had some thoughts on Blender, because the open source nature helps it. You can do a lot in various ways, and I'm sure with your coding know-how, there's a lot that you can do in a short amount of time.
Actually, Blender actually, that's the best thing about Blender, being open source. Because trying to modify a software to do what you require it to do is sometimes hard. So being that it's open source, or violate any codes of conduct or any policies. So that's actually the best thing about Blender, and then it's developing fast.
Because I remember there was a time I wanted to create a plugin. Then I sell it on Blender Market. I think I had already done the. I don't know. Like I needed a team. The people what are the initial stages of the UI and what's not. But now one guy got a scholarship and went. A guy Alibaki, so and he wasn't and we wanted to sort of shares. You get 20% of what revenue is going to be generated out of this. Get another one, depending with the task itself and the funding, especially. So but it's I think it has evolved. It has evolved.
Right, let's talk about the opportunities within the animation field. I think the most obvious ones that people really focus on is being employed or working within an animation studio. But I think there are more avenues where you can use animation to bring income. Like for example, we've talked about, like you said, building a plugin that you can sell on the Blender community. There are also places you can sell assets as well. So I wanted to know whether you guys have done any of that, or how your experience has been, and whether these things actually work.
Me personally, I have, and it's actually quite difficult to break through, because most of the time, someone that requires assets requires them in large scale. Let's say they are doing game development. They will tell you they require this amount of assets for this amount of time. But apart from that, they usually go with trends. So let's say the trends are in the automotive design. Let's say the car that's coming out is 911, we'll talk about, let's say it's a Porsche 911. Utapata everyone is modeling it and selling it, but the difference in quality will bring the difference in EOB, because unapata there is one that's riggable, one is realistic. There's an entire spectrum of the kind of quality you'll provide. But it's something I don't think we as an industry locally we've tried and explored it. Because that are the people who purchase those assets. Wengi wako huko, and it would have been easy if there were needs for here, especially in other industries.
So I think I'll counter that with literally what the project that I'm working on with the NGO for freelancers in Kakuma. The whole MO is to teach these participants to learn 3D modeling via an open source software, so that they won't have any licensing issues, and then now upload them onto these freelancing websites for mostly game design, because a lot of what they do is low poly. So of course that is the asset that can easily be used in cheap to produce games. So I feel like that's the way to go, especially when we want to talk about democratization of work, to move from just Nairobi to other places, specifically, places that are very interior in the country. And I feel like it's one opportunity that, because I know, as I said, our gaming industry is even, it's still moving, like it's still developing, but it's also moving at a very fast rate. There are very interesting projects that are currently being pitched and may be funded in the coming years. And during those periods, we will need local assets and local artists, 3D artists who are able to contribute to them. Now, as you said, you are talking about opportunities in the country. At the moment, as you said, as me being the vice chair of the Association of Animation, and also trying as much as possible to build the industry and the capacity that we have, the capacity is not just on people working on it, but also the money that comes into it to invest in us as a craft. And I can say it's very hopeful, having looked at it from an outside perspective, looking at the industries in other countries, experiencing them, and coming back and looking at what's happening in this country. I feel like it's very hopeful. And because for starters, the artists are very aggressive, and so we can use that as a selling point. So at the moment, I can say there is potential, and there are projects there are eyes that are looking into our animation and gaming industry, and there's huge potential in the coming years for us to get massive amounts of funding that will now enable us to absorb all the people working in studios and all the freelancers out there, and any specialist who, just in case we might need something. It's part of actually the R&D. I'll link you up after this with someone who was actually thinking of the same aspect of having an R&D department of their studio, whereby they can, specialist coders or developers who can now create special tools specific to the studio's needs. And I think that skills are super, super important. So I would advise a lot of artists in the country to think of unique ways. Don't just think of it in a traditional sense that you need to fix yourself in the pipeline, in the conventional pipeline, but try to think of something else, because the world is changing and you should change with it as well. So yeah, be as specialist as you can, and most importantly, be unique. And if you can't be unique, be the best at what is already being done. Yeah.
Maybe like
Love your answer.
larger studios in the UK, so they have like an R&D department where they're just like experimenting. Something that will be done maybe next year, or rather 2 years to come. They're already building the capacity and technology and funding it as well.
Have you tested any of those platforms like Gumroad?
Haven't tried to do like assets for sale. That's not. But I'd say there's capacity. Why? I've worked in. I told you. I highlighted that I worked with a certain game developing company in Kenya called Ateria, and it was owned by a sole proprietor, someone or one person. And out of it, I knew there's potential. Why? Because the budget the person like made for that specifically game, because he himself he's a coder, so he works with a certain company, foreign company, but he was getting large amount of tunes, but he decided my dream is to create this game, and have been doing this game since COVID started, but I need a team of people. That's where now a friend of mine called John Paul is a 3D animator as well, but right now he's in UK pursuing further studies. He hooked me up and told me, like, Byron, this guy, he has told me that he needs a person who can do assets for him. So then there I came and what's not. It was a good experience, because the style that he was looking for and what's not, and the amount of money he was willing to give, so that style is reachable. Yeah, I think it made me think that there's potential when it comes to the platform of game developing, asset developing, and what's not. Yeah, so people just have to think wider, larger, and figure out the business part of it, because that's the problem majorly. Whereby, how are you going to generate funds out of it? Is the game going to be fun? And is that going to ripple back as funds? So
I like how you phrased your answer, but if you focus on a specific niche, say you focus on probably developing assets that are African cultural artifacts, and you focus on that fully, and you perfect on it, there's definitely someone who's creating an animation or a game that requires those specific assets. I feel like that could be a great channel to create revenue for you as an animator. I believe not everyone has the opportunity to learn animation, because in terms of probably the machinery, the software as well, because I think most people wanatumia nini cracked software.
I decline to answer. I plead the fifth.
Actually, it's gotten easier these days, because they give student packages that are quite easy and usable. Because for something as expensive as Houdini
has 3.
Yeah, they have 2 for indies.
Yeah.
Which, as long as you don't generate revenue past, I think it's 100,000 USD. You can use the software for free. You see? So it's getting actually easier and easier. For Maxon, there's something called Maxon 1, years in 4D. For students who don't have the funds but want to pursue the industry. Blend, of course, is free, but I don't know about Maya and the rest. But for
Maya, they have a student discount. But I think these days, personally, I feel like a lot of the open source softwares are very powerful. Can actually do a lot. For drawing, you don't have to crack Photoshop. You can easily do the same with Krita, which is very free. For 2D, there's OpenToons, which does amazing anime quality level. I don't think people need to crack. Even Blender itself has a 2D plugin, Grease Pencil, and it's been doing amazing work. So I wouldn't advise Kenyans to go on with the route of, because there'll be a time when there'll be scrutiny onto the industry once you grow enough, and these guys will now start cracking down on which softwares are trivial, especially once the production start getting bigger and bigger. So it's better if we try to use what's available and be very good at it. And I'm pretty sure, it's going to be. But it's also good to learn the paid softwares as well, so that by the time one day you might get an opportunity and to work on this massive project and they only have this specific software. So so just be open about it. Be open about it.
But then also there's it's actually easier to just look for cheap options, cheap alternatives. Because personally, I started compositing, or I can't say compositing, but just video editing using Premiere. Then I jumped to compositing in After Effects. But then I realized Adobe is expensive. So I switched to DaVinci Resolve. And then which comes cheaper and is a whole package for the entire process, you see. So it's also sometimes easier to just be reasonable and go for a cheaper option and go the legal route.
All right, now where I was going with that conversation is to bring in the topic on gender and inclusion in the animation industry. Most people I've talked to, they've said there's really not a gender balance. The gender balance is there are more guys than females in the animation and digital creative industry. And what I wanted really to point out on this conversation is the inclusion of different people from different backgrounds, because there are those who are privileged, like you guys are privileged to even work on the career that you love. The people who really want to do that, but they don't have the opportunity because of maybe their environment or the challenges they're facing on a daily basis. And Jeff has really been trying to educate people who aren't, they don't have the privilege to learn animation and even practice it. And I think you've worked with a certain NGO that enabled people in refugee camps to learn animation, and they've earned from it. I watched a video and those guys were really happy because they learned it, they loved it, and they even started earning by freelancing. Maybe you can share more about that.
I think when it comes to inclusivity, yes, there is a gap, if I'm being honest. It's not just a continental thing, it's a global thing. But there has been very major improvements. For starters, coming back to the students that I teach, I can say 90% of the exceptional students are ladies. Same thing to the program, the refugee program. Like 90% of the successful candidates, they're actually women, and they're already doing amazing, phenomenal work. When it comes to including now, because inclusivity doesn't just touch on gender, it also goes to social background and economic background. The major fight that I guess we as a community should have, and I think hence why the importance of associations come in, is policies from the government. And if you look at industries in Europe and industries in Hollywood and even other countries, good example being South Africa, their industry there's a major component of it that's supported by the government. And because the government gives you a capital, sort of a boost for you to now start running. And hence, and all that comes through policy documents, and actually people who are creatives being part of the government as well, being part of that decision making. So our fight at the moment is to make sure that creatives themselves are also in that table, that decision making table that's up there, that's going to now enable, because empowerment can't just be done by the private sector. The private sector will want return on interest. NGOs depend on donor funds, which is glorified begging. Sorry, which is not sustainable in itself. but the government will always be there. And if the government gives proper incentives for people who are not just in the city, but also out there, because Kenya, we are known for being a tech-savvy country, a country that embraces technology. You know, look at our mobile transaction systems. We lead globally in terms of mobile transactions. So it kind of shows you that we already have that urge. If you look at global companies come set their regional hubs here in Kenya. So it shows you that we have so much potential. It's just that our policies are somewhat lackluster and need to be worked on and updated and re-updated every time with creatives included into that conversation. And I think if that is solved, a lot of the inclusivity gaps that are there in this particular industry, or just general society as a whole, will be solved.
Mm. Yeah. And I feel like there's a challenge when it comes to that, because say they even make those policies, are there creatives within those organizations, or who are these people exactly? Because if they say they've wametenga the budget for the creative industry, do we really know where that money goes, how it's used?
Well, the saddest thing is, yes, there are creatives there, but I don't know. Sometimes people say, ukishaingia serikali, you know, things happen, and you know you're not really in control of that. It's just that we never have, as a people, because a politician will look at you as a number, as a piece of a puzzle. So when you don't have a block that can help them achieve their own needs, you won't necessarily be heard to them. So if we as creatives truly unite and truly come out in numbers and say, these are our demands and these are, I'm sure there's somebody who will look at it and be like, I feel threatened by this, and let me act upon it. Mm-hmm. So it's all about the power of numbers. And sometimes we are such a small industry, to be fair, yet so fragmented. Mm-hmm. We are very small, but still fragmented. So we kind of need to just pull ourselves together, say this is the plan that we have for ourselves, and now find a person that will now take it up to the table and say, okay, this is X amount of people who are behind it. Look at how doctors, or how teachers are actually some of the biggest blocks in the country. They can literally determine a voting pattern of a specific region. Teachers are very powerful because of that unity that they have in their associations and so even as creatives, because right now our numbers are growing very rapidly, and our outreach is insane, considering that we use social media as our tools of propagation. So the more numbers that we're able to generate, it will give incentive to these people who are at the quote-unquote table to make sure that they listen to what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Adding up on the last statement you made, A3K making, because I think what made me, and I think what would make everyone else to get into like the industry, it's because of for me it was A3K, because I saw how they were very supportive when it comes to education and whatnot. So if in challenges, you know, pricing and whatnot, because the first thing I was told was like, if you need any support, let's say you've been requested to send something, to a certain, that's how Naftali told me, the previous chairperson. He told me like, you can request a letter, a recommendation letter from the A3K. Once you're a member and they've certified that you're a creative and whatnot, you know, paid the fee and whatnot, you can be written like to a letter of recommendation, whereby if you're going to pitch somewhere, you know, the association, you know, comes up. And if someone sees that you're in an association, you know, it gives you credibility somehow. So I think for me, what worked was the support from the 3K. And I think if there's someone out there who wants like support and he doesn't know what to do, is is trying to get someone, or rather like people who know what is to be done. I think the best way to get into the 3K, the association, you get to know, yeah. You get to interact with fellow creatives and what's not. Yeah.
And personally feel as creatives, we should take that task into our hands. Because, like you said, these people on the table, they don't give any, see, you know.
Yeah.
So, like, we have to come together and just make something and show people what entails of the industry and what we can gain out of it, especially return on investment. Because yes, people want to work, but most of the people will want to work and get paid. There's no way you'll get into an industry just for see charity. So I feel like it should be a task upon us to just come together and be able to show people this is what's available and we've not explored it yet. Because even I'd say, after if we just involve the government, like you say, so you know how hard it is to explain to people what you do, especially people that don't know exactly what it is. Yeah, so I think we should first start by showing people what it is and show them that it is something they can do before we start trying to move it forward. And I don't think we've done that as creatives in the industry yet.
Market outreach is, and even just trying to educate, you know, as exposed as other people might be. There are people even in media houses who still don't know what the animation pipeline is, or people who are working in very advanced industry that still don't appreciate what it takes to create a very simple production. So I think that sort of outreach is our responsibility, as you just said correctly, that every creative needs to have, especially for the people in that ecosystem, that same ecosystem, be it funding, be it marketing, be it now the actual people practicing that craft. Everyone needs to be educated on how everything works, because even us as creative, we need to know how business works and how marketing and how we can get funding. On this other side, we also need to know how to pay our taxes. We also need to know how to do these things. So, and at the same time, we also need to perfect our own craft.
Yeah.
So it is a whole spectrum of things that we need to do. But that's the best thing about it. We're creatives, we create, and we're able to find innovative solutions for it.
Yeah. So I think one of the challenges creatives face is accessing funds. For Ulyan Tata, I mean, you're part of the team that works on Ulyan Tata. How did you guys access funding for that project?
Yeah, so speaking for, I guess I'll speak for the producers of the project, where they initially got a grant by the Kenya Film Commission to do a trailer. And then through that trailer, they now aggressively searched for other fundings in the continent and off the continent as well, and ended up, there's a fund called Creation Africa by the French, and that's what enabled them to get the first episodes done. And also, since their work revolved around a research component that included indigenous communities in the country, that involved them going and recording songs from those communities and then taking them back. So due to that nature of that aspect of it, it was which involved indigenous communities, National Geographic was also interested and became a partner fund as well. So which kind of shows you that you need to have a unique concept, because you can't just have a very generic concept and expect anyone and everyone to come and fund you, especially when you're going that route. If you have something impactful and something that you know can literally make a difference for a lot of people, there are very niche organizations that are willing to fund you for that. It's one way of getting your funds. And if you have a particular agenda, I'm pretty sure there are people who will be willing to put in their money for that. So yeah, I think that's where I'd say we are at the moment. Similar funding models, that's, as you said, places like Europe have a similar funding model. Their governments are very supportive, and that's where their major source of revenue comes in, when it comes to creating those short films that they usually do, or even feature films. It's not, I can't say the same for Hollywood, because Hollywood now relies on just how much money this, and their studio system, the studios already have large amounts of cash and a lot of investors, whereby they can now put into a project and hope that project recoups the money and gives them a profit. We are not there yet. I can't, unless we make very cheap movies like how Nollywood does, and that, of course, alters sort of the quality issue that so it's always about balancing quality and quantity. Yeah, losing one and gaining another. But yeah, with proper incentives and proper policies, very soon this whole ecosystem will be sustainable. Yeah.
Have you guys ever tried to access funding for any of your projects? Or do you even have an idea of how the process on accessing funds?
Personally, I don't think I'm there yet, because with funding, you need to have a purpose and an idea, because someone can't just come and give you because you do this. And it needs to be reasonable enough that they have no second thought about it. So personally, I don't think I've gotten to the point where I am ready to go on and venture for funding, but it is something people should do, even though in the industry, I don't think we've quite developed enough that people are willing to fund and sustain the industry yet. Because I don't think they've seen enough returns. That's why I'm saying we need to show them what we can do for the industry as a whole, not just as individuals, for them to be able to willing. So personally, I've not explored it yet, but I know we have challenges still.
Well, that's something I've learned. I didn't know that you have to have like a really unique idea. I thought they only just fund ideas that you already have and you have a solid work plan for it. But yeah.
I think it depends. It really depends. There are those who, once you tell them that, those angel investors, let me say angel investors, depending with where you're going to source for funds, it's like tech, once they see it has a sense of, let me say commercial sense, whereby you have this, we're going to do this, but we are hoping that this will be the outcome and you're going to get a percentage of this. So I think getting the idea from tech funding, I think it sort of goes with that direction. Sometimes the idea sells, sometimes the agitation, sometimes the selling the dream. We hope that So I think it depends. But for me, like funding, personally, I looked it. Have not tried to do that, but I look into it like two times. One, like there's the project funding, but there's funding for like the whole, like let's say studio or whatnot. Like I want you to take like 10% of this, but we need this amount and whatnot. So I have thought about it, but have not literally. There's some guy who Brayton, I think you brought him up here last some weeks back, and he had a good idea of how can we consolidate this. Let's say we create a feature film, rather in 3D, 2D animation, and we do like screening where, let's say, Alliance Française, a certain place, whereby we say, for you to come in, kuna kwana ticket, just a token for these guys who have done this. So he had a good concept and idea about that, whereby you guys come and volunteer, you can, create something.
So do you have just a screening of people's animations, just to showcase what people are actually doing behind the scenes?
Exactly. Yeah, he speaks passionately about it. He has a good idea about it, yeah. But I don't know if he has found an avenue of, raising funds, sort of like, But he really has the idea.
I think even when it comes to screening, we can, as sort of in this particular economic setup that we have as a country, we can always borrow from places like India, where the government basically takes up, make sure every street corner has a Kamini cinema. You know what we used to have back in the days where you pay 5 shillings or something, and because that's money that if compounded into a large amount of people, into like a multitude of people, can actually be profitable for these filmmakers who or whatever medium that you're trying to portray. So I think in our particular setup, we need to start thinking about the economics of numbers, because that's how basically Hollywood works. Because since it's a rich country, for them, $10, $5 is not a lot of money for them. For us, it might be a lot. For us to go watch the Avengers, it's a whole 2,000 or 1,500 shillings, which is quite a lot for us. But for them, it's not as much. So if as a government or institutions in the country now decide to set up these very affordable screening centers spread out throughout the country, I'm pretty sure a weekend a filmmaker can recoup their money if people pay 20, 50 shillings to go watch a movie. I'm pretty sure. So, and all that comes with immense capital. As I said, still comes back from the government or any organization that is willing to seed in that capital and gain from it later.
But adding to that, I think we also need to evolve to be able to take these opportunities. For example, looking at the industry, let's just use color for example. There's usually a technical workflow for color, just like they're using different cameras here, but then they will want the same color. Like, sijui kama unajua SS? Yeah. So there's usually like workflows zenye industry standard that you find as an industry we've not explored even these technical workflows to bits, even one.
So
if we can do that and develop something that's standardized, we can all work together, because squeezy where you go, you'll find a solid plan, operations, you don't veer from the plan. And this is a creative industry, things change, technologies evolve, but you find people doing the same thing throughout. And then the competition, we need to work, because when you will find like a movie, it will not be produced by one studio. Just here there is 10 or 16 studios working for different shots in US, like another 11, 12 in Europe, another 16 in Asia. But that I don't know if it's stigmatization or fear, but there's some competition that is trying to lock the industry from trying to evolve. And that is actually a major hurdle for funding and those things like screening, because people will appreciate each and other people's work if we can all build and just put in some input so that I did something for this, then it will also come back. So that's also another problem for that sector.
I think you've wrinkled my brain, and this is a question my own supervisor asked me, like, what is the Kenyan pipeline? Like, what is your pipeline over there? How do you start approaching? Because he doesn't necessarily care about like how the industry, what is being done out there. He just asked me specifically, what is the Kenyan pipeline? And I think, I can't say I have the answer for that. And it's literally what I will be doing in the next couple of years or so, in terms of researching truly what defines a Kenyan pipeline. And from that, it's easier for you to even go to policymakers and say, okay, this is now how people operate. These are the tools of trade, this is the expenses, these are and this is now what. Because right now you go to a government and be like, okay, you want 10 million for what? Like, I don't understand it is what exactly you're doing. And you're very correct when you say we need a standardized pipeline so that it's easier for us to even start having a standard rate. That rate is determined by how much input is done onto the pipeline. So that's a very, very, very good question. I think all the viewers who are watching this should ask themselves what it is for you to specific to the Kenyan experience. Don't start thinking about Japanese artists out there, or specific to the Kenyan experience in your own context. What does it mean in your own, like how can the pipeline be defined in your own context?
I think that should be a really great question to answer.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
Food for thought, yeah.
Because with the actually, if we improve things, also, as you said, the rate will improve because the quality will also improve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Learning each step.
Yeah, in matters of time, we'll have to cut it short from there. It's been an... I know. I think that's because now we are holding group conversations.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to look into the timing here. Having one-on-one conversations, 1 hour was enough. But now with group conversations, everyone has to have a chance to speak. If kuna wengine wana expound kabisa. Yeah, but that has been really great. I really appreciate everyone's perspective on this conversation. And I have learned a lot. It's been a while since I practiced animation, so this was, I mean, it has taken me back kidogo. Yeah. It's been interesting. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sparing time. And with the technical hitches, be patient. Yes, that has been the Creative CoLab Season 2, Episode 7. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've learned a thing or two from this handsome gentleman over here. And until next time, see you. Good morning, good evening, and good night.